I shared with you that my HLD course was a huge success, but I don't think I can claim it until my students or the participants of the course can actually prove it to you. And this channel is known for mock interviews. So I thought, why have mock interviews only of the YouTubers? Because I've actually seen a lot of comments coming up like, why interview only YouTubers or only these educators? We want to see how others also perform in mock interviews. And these students have trusted me with their learning experience. They joined my course. So they definitely deserve a chance at the mock interview. Plus, I'm sure you'll also get to learn a lot because I am very, very confident about my students. So, yes, this is a new beginning. We'll create an entire series where I do mock interviews with my students. Today is the first one, and it is for HLD, but we'll have a lot of LLD interviews also because the next course that is coming up is obviously LLD course. It is starting on 19th September, by the way. But let's focus on today's interview. We have Subhajit with us, who has only 3 years of experience and has never faced any HLD interview till now. So this is his first HLD interview. Without any further delay, let him only introduce himself and then we'll get started with the interview.
Okay. Thank you, Keerti, for having me on your channel and giving me this platform to have this experience with you. I'm Subhajit Ghosh. For everyone who doesn't know, I'm Subhajit Ghosh, having 3 years of experience in IT industry, and mostly I'm working as a full stack developer in a service-based company for last 3 years. Yeah, that's all. I'm trying to, in terms of this course or this particular channel that you can say, I became interested in system designing because I wanted to experience much more growth in my career as well, and I wanted to grow as a software developer. So I came into this contact, and obviously it has benefited a lot from me. Obviously, we will be able to see that after having the design purpose, whatever benefit it has given me. But yeah, I'm quite sure internally that I'll be able to handle it just fine. Yeah, thank you. Off to you.
I am pretty sure you will do just awesome because I can already feel the confidence in you. And without wasting any time, let's get started because I am sure you will do great. So, Subhajit, let's get started with WhatsApp system design today.
Okay, that's fine. Before we start designing WhatsApp, just for confirmation, are we designing just the WhatsApp text part, like where we are just sending messages between users, or do we have something special like business aspect of it, like WhatsApp business or something else as well?
Just for users, but not just text messages, they can be images or videos
Images
as
or
well.
videos? Okay, fine. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's start with since we know that our the customer is going to be, let's say, the common user, and with the facility of, let's say, texting, image share, and video share, let's say, right? So
One
that's,
second. Can you zoom in? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's our customer base. Okay, now if we talk about our functional requirements, so let's say, uh, if you, let's see, functional requirements, I'd like to make it a bit bigger. Yeah, probably that. So since we are in a time frame, like let's say 1 hour or so, so that's why I will try to cover the primary requirements at first. Then after that, if we have time, then probably we'll go back to supporting any extended requirements if needed. Okay, so maybe in
Yep.
WhatsApp, the this type of application which we are developing, the primary thing that I will be like to support is one-to-one text. So that's the first one. Then I would also like to have a group text feature,
Yep.
a place where we can probably see the person's profile. So profile of any customer or any friend I have or anyone like that. And some of the like quality of life feature, let's say the notification and read receipts or last seen status, something like that. So probably these I will put in the primary list category. After that, we can come back to the extended list if we have time. Okay,
Yep.
now if we go to the non-functional part, so let's say non-functional requirements. Yeah. Now, if we think about a messaging app or a chat app like WhatsApp or so, then if we have to support cap theorem in this, because we know that our system is going to be distributed system, it's not going to be monolith. So if we follow the cap theorem, then most probably our system will not be able to have two at the same time every single, sorry, three at the same time every single time, correct? So we will either be prioritizing availability or consistency. Now, since in messaging app, I would like to have it available all the time, because I would like to have it that every user or every customer will simply open the app and be able to chat with it, because otherwise it will make the texting experience really like not up to the mark. But even if I have, like, let's say some of the messages in different order than someone who sent it, I think that's okay, because it's not nothing going to be that much serious about it, right? So providing that
Yep.
requirement, I will probably prioritize availability.
Mm-hmm.
And the primary other also one more requirement that I would like to support is real time. So it should not be like, let's say I sent a message and it came after like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or whatever is like. If it is worst case, then it might take time, but otherwise I would like to make it real time as much as possible. So
Yep.
this time I can also say like this one as low latency. That will also work, right?
Before we go ahead, I would just like to take a moment and tell you that Subhajit was part of my HLD course. Similarly, the next course that is starting is the 5-week live LLD course. All the details are mentioned on the site KeertiPurswaniCourses.com. It is starting on the 19th September. If interested, do check it out. The week-wise curriculum and all the details are mentioned over there in the FAQ section as well. There are separate FAQ sections for LLD, HLD. And also, if you want to access HLD right now and not LLD, or both, then you can actually sign up for the HLD course as well. So right now you'll be able to see the recordings of the last course, basically the course in which Subhajit was part of, and you will be able to access the next HLD course that happens, and you will be able to attend it live as well. So if you want to attend it urgently, if you want to watch the recordings, if that works out for you, you can just do that, or you can just sign up for the LLD course right now and sign up for HLD whenever that happens. I would personally suggest you to try attending all the live classes. So do not miss the LLD class at least. It is starting on 19th September. If interested, please check out KeertiPurswaniCourses.com. Without further delay, let's continue with the interview.
So if we go ahead with the main system design part, let's say, but before that, I would like to also do the capacity estimation. Yeah. So let's do the capacity estimation. So now, the last time I checked, it was the WhatsApp had 2 billion active users daily. So not 2 billion, probably 2 point something, but let's round it off to 2 billion just so that we have ease of calculation and we are doing estimation anyway. So let's go with 2 billion. Is that okay, or would you like
Okay.
to have a different number?
No, it's fine.
Okay, that's fine. So let's say 2 billion is our daily active users.
Yeah.
And let's take let's take an estimation that every user will be sending 50 messages a day approximately. So we will have total of
Okay.
100 billion messages per day, right? Per day. So we'll have that per day. Okay. Now in terms of space, at first I would just like to go with the text part, then we can come back to the images and video part after that. So if we just go with the
Yep.
text part at first, then let's say each of the messages that I'm sending, maybe like give or take them 100 bytes, including the metadata, because let's say I can take 80 bytes as messaging, texting and everything, and 20 bytes as metadata, or 10 bytes, so round it off to 100 including the metadata. So I'm saying
What
100.
metadata can be there?
Yeah, so
What do you
let's
mean by
say
metadata?
when I'm sending WhatsApp, probably I would need to send to whom I'm sending. Sometimes let's say my location, or sometimes let's say other properties like my device ID or something, which WhatsApp can use to send the message, to forward the message, and also to keep a track or analyze, like use it for analytics purpose. So those kind of metadata
Yeah.
which is not actually part of the message itself, so by them I call the metadata. So let's take them like 20, 10 bits or 20 bytes, 10 bytes or 20 bytes, and round it off to 100 bytes per message. Is that okay, or do you have something
Also
else?
timestamp.
Yeah,
But
timestamp
okay,
as well.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm.
100 bytes, let's say, per message. Okay. Now, so we have 100 billion messages per day, and we have 100 bytes each of the message. Okay. So if we go with the capacity estimation at first, then I would like to say total will be, let's say, equals to, so 100, that means 100, and billion is 10 to the power 9. So
Mm-hmm.
that into 100 bytes a message, right? So that's total, you will say bytes per day. We are getting that much per day. Now, if I have to convert it into estimation of like per second kind of, then I would like to convert it to from day to second. Then in that case, I will say 100, sorry, 100, and then the billion mark 10 to the power 9. I can probably say it will be 10 to the power 6 into 10 to the power 3. Sorry, this is not multiply, this will be power and 100. Okay, this one I would like to explain. I took this 10 to the power 6 here because if we like just have a look separately at the like for some time, then we will see that 1 million, like if you take per day, that much bytes per day, then if you calculate it per second, it will roughly be, let's say, 11.5 seconds, something like that. So I am rounding off to 12. So round off to 12, let's say, bytes per second, right? So since I'm trying to get
Yep.
like the per second value, so I'm trying in my head to calculate that, okay, I will need 1 million value. And since 1 million we know is equals to 10
Mhm.
to the power 6, so that's why I broke it off to 10 to the power 6 into 10 to the power 3. That's the only reason, nothing else. So from there, sorry, yeah, from there we can say it's that now this 10 to the power 6 that I just mentioned, it can be taken as 100 into, I'll just write the rest of it at first, into 100, and then that 10 to the power 6 we can write it as 12 bytes per second, right? And then from there, if we calculate the rest of it, then it will be what, 10 to the 3, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so 12 bytes into 10 to the 7. Okay, so if we take 10 from there, then it will be 120 bytes into 10 to the power 6. Yeah, that's this one. I'd like to write it like this, bytes per second, which will be 120 MB per second, right? So that will be like, let's say, our estimation of the capacity, like bandwidth. Now, if we are talking about, let's say we include the message and video part as well, because this is just the text value, right? So let's say
Mhm.
out of these 100 billion messages, I take that every 10th message is going to be, let's say, a image. So I am saying that 10th, sorry, uh, was 10th message is going to be one image. And similarly, I would also like to take it, let's say, every 20th message will be a video.
Yep.
Okay. So in that case, I just need that here. And wow, one more thing. Here, the image data per image, I would like to take, let's say, 200 KB. And here, per video, let's say, we would take 2 MB to round it off. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Now, this was the message, every message that we have per day, right? So if we just divide it by 10, then we will have the total number of images, right? And here, instead of 100, we will multiply it by 200, correct? So instead of 100 bytes per message, it will be 200 bytes, and it will occur once in every 10th message, so by divided by 10, right? Okay. And similar
But
here,
also KB, right? So into 10 power 3.
this yeah, sorry, KB, yeah, you're correct. So here I can also write into 10 to the power 3, and I don't need the k here, correct? That
Mhm.
should be 1. And here we have 100 billion instead of 100, since we took 2 MB, so it will be like 2 into MB means 10 to the power 6, right? That will be per day.
Mhm.
I hope so. Yeah, and also one more thing, since it is occurring every 20th user, I'll need to divide it by 20. Okay, let's delete the rest of it. we'll need to do this part again. Okay, so if we calculate this part, this 10, one went here, so we will say it is 200, just 2, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, that much bytes per day, right? And here, if we take out this 2 and this 2, and here was 1 0, so 1 0 here, so we can say this one will be 1 into 9, 10, and 16, so 10 to the power 16 bytes per day. Let me just verify if it is all right. So we have 2, 9, 10, 14, 15, and here 2, 2 off, 9, 10, 16. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, fine. So that much we're getting every day. And now if we just follow the same method to calculate per second value, then I'll simply go with 10.
It's fine.
Would you like to
Like you
add
don't
some?
have to.
Oh, okay.
No, it's fine. I guess we can go ahead. You don't need to like calculate till the end.
Should I write the final result like 120 MB? So here it will just be
Okay. Sure, sure. Yeah.
byte per day. I'm just writing the day value, and here it
Mm-hmm.
will be 10 bytes per day. Correct? Yeah, that
Yep.
will be our
Yep.
per day for the image and the video as well. So we can add up all of them, and then we will get the total estimation after converting
Yep.
these to per
Awesome.
second. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if we now come to the system design part, so let's say we have clients, right? So let's say we have client one here. Just increase the font a bit. Yeah. And we have client two. We have client three. Okay. Now, all of the clients, since we already discussed in our non-requirement, non-functional part that we like to have it real time and as low latency as possible. So in
Mm-hmm.
terms of connectivity, like how it will be connected over the network, we have four different options, right? If we go with polling, then we will have short polling, long polling. Otherwise, we will have server sent events, and we will have WebSockets. Now, if we use the polling methods, so short polling and long polling, then the client will have to keep on requesting in short polling every, like after a few times, after let's say in a certain interval, and after in long polling it will be like once he receives a message, then he will send the request again. So in both the cases, client will have to keep on sending the request again and again, so that will be very inefficient. And also, let's say I made a request, but in between that time frame, one message came, so it will be non real time, right? And it will also be very inefficient on the client side, so that takes out that possibility. If we go with server sent events, then it is just a one-way connection from server to the client. The client cannot send any messages over that connection, so that is also not the proper way. So that leaves us with WebSockets. So just take for example that we will like to use WebSockets for this kind of scenarios where we're dealing with messages and all. Okay, now since all of our clients, they will not be in the same geolocation or maybe not even in the same network connection and everything, so they will definitely not be connecting the same machine, right? We will have distributed systems, so it will not be connecting the same machines. We will have a lot of different machines, right? And also we would like to balance the load separately so that any one server is not getting overloaded. So in that case, let's say we would like to take in between the connection from the client to the server, let's say we would like to have a API gateway or a load balancer for spreading out the client requests to different servers that we already have available, right? So let's take the servers now. Okay, one thing here, right now we just discussed that we are taking WebSockets client like for the connection method, but let's say later on in the future we develop something in-house or we'd like to change it for XYZ reasons. So instead of just writing it WebSocket handler, I'm just writing it as connection handler. But here we definitely know the part that here we are, for current time we are using WebSockets, right? but we can recognize it as a connection handler, let's say. So multiple clients will be connecting to multiple connection handlers, right? Okay, that. Now, each of the connection handlers, they can be in different geolocation, different network, and they have no idea who they are connected with or who is going to ask them something to send where. They have no location idea. So let's say to manage all the connections, to inform them about different kinds of what other connections are there and about the where they should send the message. To handle all of that, let's say we are taking a connection manager, let's say, right? So here this connection manager, he will have connection to all the individual connection handlers, so that he will be able to inform the individual connection handlers that where other connection handlers are located. Okay. Now let's say, just so far, if we try to visualize the system, let's say client 1 is trying to send a message to client 3, let's say. So client 1 to client 3 message. This is HLD. So let's say we try to visualize that, like just so far. Then what will the flow look like? The flow will be like from client 1, it will go to the connection handler, right? But client 3 is connected to connection handler. Let's mark them. That's a good idea. So yeah, so connection handler 1, it is handling client 1, but the client 3 is connected to connection handler 3. So in that case, he will need to ask the connection manager where connection handler 3 is located, correct? So in that case, let's say here I will be storing different kinds of, like, all connections. There probably ports, or let's say instead of ports we can also say which connection handler is having that particular connection or that particular user that this client is trying to send a message to. So here
So
he,
when you say a connection, I have a question. So when you say a connection, when is
yeah.
this connection built with the client? And so is it that I am always, like if I am a client, am I always connected to a connection handler?
No, not really. Okay, so if we, let's say this connection handler, the connection that is built here, it will be mainly built if you have opened the app. Let's say you have closed the app, or your app is, or your cell phone is offline, or your device is not connected because of some cellular reasons or whatever, then obviously it will be disconnected. Otherwise, it will be very inefficient for a particular client to always maintain a connection when the client is not there. So the connection handler doesn't need to keep on making keeping that connection active anyway, right? So only when the user has come online or opened the app and he tries to connect to the app server, that's when he will have this connection established at that point. Is that
Okay.
okay?
Yes, and in connection manager, so
Yeah.
only when it is connected, only then it will be like updated that there's a connection. What if, okay, so what if I go offline? So like I was connected, so my connection
Yes.
is stored in connection manager, but now I go offline. So what do you do, like of my details in the connection manager?
Okay. So here we can have, with all of this situation, let's say when we have connection handler and I go offline, for example, I go offline from here, then we can have two possibilities. I just discussed two possibilities. One possibility can be that we can remove the data from the connection manager, that we don't need the data anymore, we'll just keep the data of whatever connection handler we had at last, that one. Or the second possibility can be we can store the last active as well, like with which connection it was last active. Just because, let's say, if we, most of the time it will not be connecting to different connection handlers. Most of the time, maybe some of the time you will change the network, or some of the time you will change the geolocation, and then you will have connection handlers separated. But other than that, it will most be the same connection handler. So in that case, we might think that we would like to store it, but other than that, in this scenario, I am taking the example that it is not stored, it is removed from the connection manager, let's say. So I'm only keeping all the,
Even if we uh,
yeah,
even if
please
we
go ahead.
connect to the same connection handler, we will
Yeah.
anyway have to come and update it in the connection manager, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
what
otherwise
is
it
the
will be
point
stale
of
data.
keeping it?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
also, yeah,
yeah.
that's also a good point, that if we anyway have to update it, then what's the point of keeping? Yeah, yeah, that's also a good point. So we can say
Oh,
active connections, right? Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
So in that case, the connection handler one, it took the information from connection manager that where this client 3 is connected to. And since connection manager has
Mhm.
all the different details of different clients, so he will send the information to the connection handler that okay, he is connected in connection handler 3, right? Okay, so from here we will have two different options. Either we can have a separate path, let's say where we are trying to process the message and everything. Let's say I just for temporary purpose I'm just writing it message service. Service. Let's say we are completely having separate message service for delivering the message and everything. Or we can also have a way where the connection handler, sorry, yeah, the connection handler directly sends the message to connection 3 because he have
How will
already
the
got
connection handle?
because he have gotten
Right.
the
So,
information from connection manager that the client 3 is connected to connection handler 3, right?
can you walk me through the flow if we are like the entire thing when client one is sending the message, exactly what is happening after what?
Yes.
Like in this, in both the cases. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So let's say here the connection from connection sorry, from client 1 he got connected to connection handler 1, and then he is
Mhm.
asking where this client 3 is located. So for now connection handler 1 he doesn't know where the client 3 is located, so he will ask the connection manager where it is located. And since connection manager has all of the information of whatever active connection are there, so he will look through it and he will probably like for this time let's say the client 3 is active, and we are saying that okay, the connection handler that client 3 is connected to connection handler 3. So he will take the information from there and forward the information back to connection handler 1 that okay, the client 3 is connected to connection handler 1. So that's like so far the flow. Now what to do with that information, like that connection handler 1 got the information back from the connection manager that client 3 is connected to connection handler 3. What to do with that information, I just made two different ways. Either we can have a separate message service where the connection handler will see further than like after a bit, where he will take the message service and convey where to send the messages to the message service and leave it at that. Or he can directly send the
Mhm.
message to client connection handler 3 to forward to client 3. But in this
Mhm.
case I would not like to follow the second one, like where the connection handler one is directly sending to connection handler 3. I would not like to follow that one because let's say we have group messages as well, we have different kinds of analytics that we want to check. In that case it's better to have separate services because we will have specific data coming from specific services rather than like different data coming from a single service. It also follows the solid principle rule where each of the, like in this case the server, but in other case programming case it will be function, so it should have only one function to serve or only one responsibility, right? So in that case I'm taking that here the connection handler will just be responsible for managing the connection, not sending the message. Is that correct? Is that
Okay.
all right, or would you like to have something?
So, okay. So your connection handler is basically a lightweight service only to
Yes,
maintain the connection,
only
right?
to maintain a
Okay.
connection, that's all.
Oh, but then aren't you increasing the latency by sending it to message service? Like especially you said group messages, I understand.
Yes.
But what about one-to-one messages? Aren't you increasing the latency by sending it to message service?
Yes, so here we will be increasing maybe probably a fraction of second, but what we are going to use next may not make that big of a difference. It will be a few seconds, I do agree with that, but it won't be that much like big of a difference compared to the profit or the ease of usability or use of management of the whole system that it is going to give us in back. So it's all about trade-offs. So if we have, let's say, few milliseconds extra delay, but it can have the whole system up and running most of the time, and we will not have to think about, let's say in future we would like to add something feature or any other service, we would not have to uh, recreate or remodel everything that we have already designed, then in that case the first one makes much more sense. We can trade off a little
Okay.
bit of performance, but we will get a lot more manageability by trading off that performance just a little bit.
Okay.
Okay,
Hmm.
so as we discussed that I am going with a different service for handling the messages, right? Okay, now clients, the client one or client two. Let's say there are other clients as well who are connected to connection handler. All of them will be sending messages one by one, right? And it's not necessary that our server connections or network connections or everything is up to the mark and it is getting delivered instantly. It may not be like that. Sometimes there can be some delay, or maybe let's say some error occurred or something, because of which it was not processed immediately, right? In that case, let's say I would like to have a message queue like distributed message queue. Yeah. For example, we can take the example of Kafka, right? Here also, one other thing that you just mentioned, that probably it will be very inefficient or it will add time, right? So here, by using Kafka, we can say that since Kafka has very high throughput, so it won't be as much as if we would have used other processes. So Kafka does like reduce that particular latency that we just talked about previously a little bit. It just reduces that latency.
How
So it
does
helps
Kafka have a high throughput? Like, why does Kafka have a high throughput? Do you know a bit about it?
a bit. Yeah, I do know a bit about it. So what happens that Kafka uses indexing method where all of the events that is getting created. So if we have to generalize it, let's say there is if we are talking about Kafka, let's say there is a pub sub model, so publisher subscriber. So one creates different topics, different let's say the main thing that we want to process, just have it simplified. So the main topic that we want to process, so he will be the publisher, and whatever we just whoever will consume that particular topic or that particular thing that we want to process, he will be the consumer. So in this pub sub method, the Kafka, what it does, it creates an index of all of the data that is coming from the publisher, and it indexes them in a queue, so everything will be one by one by one. Now we know that I also have read it somewhere, but that if you are talking about large amount of data, then random searching is very slow. It can be very slow. The latency can be very high. But if we are talking about reading sequentially, then it can be very like the data can be fetched very easily. The latency can be very low. So here Kafka uses similar principle where it stores the data sequentially, because of which the throughput it provides is very high. And also it is not a single system, it is not a monolith, it's a distributed system where it has multiple servers and also multiple storages taking care of it. So instantly we will be able to serve a lot of the topics to different subscribers. Is that okay, or you want to ask something else?
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, okay. So in that case, let's say our messages, it went from the connection handler 1 to the Kafka, right? Then in the Kafka, it will be distributed message queue, and they will all be queued together. Okay. From there, I need a message service, right? This message
Mhm.
service, let's say I'm trying to give it only the responsibility of handling messages which are one to one, right? So let's say in the beginning, I will say one to one message service. Yeah, let's say that. So it came from there. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So it came from Kafka, then it came to one-to-one message service. And obviously, since here I would like to add this one, that it has gotten the information from the connection manager where the client tree is, right? So from here I can say that it will put the data in Kafka where they will have the information of the sender, the receiver, and like the whole pipeline, the where should that message go, so that all the other services, they don't need to directly have any other information. Once they consume the data from Kafka, they will have the information, okay, where should I send it? So then in that case, I can send it from this message service to connection handler 3, and then connection handler 3 can forward it to client 3. Yeah, that's okay, right?
Huh.
Do you have any questions so far?
I have one question. So here you are first getting where the client 3 is connected to, like connection handler 3, and then you are
Yes,
sending to Kafka. But
yes.
what if by the time one-to-one message service takes out from Kafka, your client
Mhm.
3 changes the handler, like it goes from connection handler 3 to connection handler 2?
Good
How are you
question.
going to handle that then?
Yeah, sure. Okay, we can talk about it as well. I would like to merge it with one another functionality that I'm thinking. So I'll just let you
Mm-hmm.
know. So let's say we have a relay service, or we can
Okay.
also say deactive service, something like that. Why I'm saying it deactive service is because let's say in one case that you just mentioned, that by the time it has reached connection handler 3, the client is already disconnected, or the client has changed to connection handler 2. But there can also be another situation. Let's say by the time it has reached it, the first connection that you mentioned, that it has changed the connection, it can also be the client device has gone disconnected from the network or something. So obviously, as we discussed in the beginning, that if any client is not connected, then we don't need to keep that connection with the connection handler, right? So in that case, it will also not find that particular client. Both the cases I would like to handle with the relay service. So whatever messages is coming, if they are unable to deliver, let's say to the final client, then we can store them in this relay service. This relay service will then ask the connection manager where this particular client is there, if it is active, if it is at all active, then it will ask.
Okay. Okay. I have a question.
Yes.
So let's say my client two was inactive. Okay.
Yeah.
Now my was offline. Suppose I was in flight. My client two was in flight, and now client two comes online. Okay.
Yeah.
So now it connects to connection handler two. There
Yeah.
are some messages that my client three must have sent, and you have saved them in relay service. Correct?
Yeah.
Is that's what you're saying?
Yes.
Now, how will connection handler, like, how will relay service come to know that, okay, client two has come up and, okay, now I need to give these
we
messages?
can we can keep this connection that we just mentioned about relay service to connection manager. We can keep this both ways. Let's say whatever relay service is keeping, whatever data it is keeping in store, let's say we have a db, right? We have a db where we are keeping all the offline messages of something like that, and we have different client ids, right? Okay, that this client has gone, like the message has not been received by this client id or something like that. Any moment the client makes a connection to the connection handler, then the connection manager can let us know that, okay, relay service, this particular client has come online, you can send the remaining messages to this particular client through this connection handler. That can be possible.
Right. So this is handling the offline part. I'm good with it.
Yes.
But now the case that I first said that client three was connected to connection handler two, but now it
Yes.
is connected to was connected to connection handler 3, but now it is connected to connection handler 2 by
Yes.
the time you, by the time you send the message, and now
Yes.
you have saved it to deactive service. But
Yes.
like, you know when client 2 was connected, maybe it already checked the deactive service before, and you understand my point. Maybe
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
message will be in deactive service, but now no one is
For
coming
some
to
time,
pick
let's
it up.
say so you are
Yes.
talking about, let's say the message came and it got stored in relay service, and before it could check, it was already there. Okay, in that case we can do
Yes.
also one thing, that as soon as this connection changes, right, as soon as this connection changes, you have just mentioned, we will just put it directly in the relay service, and instead of storing it directly in the db first, instead of doing this one, we can first check with the connection manager that is this client active anywhere else. So this part will become a bit more heavy lifting, that anytime the messages come from any connection to relay service, it will ask the connection manager first, is it active anywhere else? If it says that no, it is not active anywhere else, then we can put it in db, and that will be fine. And then after that, once the connection manager gets to know, okay, this particular client has come online, is this particular client present in the db? If it is present, then it can let the relay service know, okay, this particular client has come online, you can do the rest of it. But for that
Okay.
question that you just mentioned, I can, before putting it to the DB, I can ask the connection manager, is that particular client connected anywhere else? And then it can let me know. Based on that, I can, instead of saving to the DB, I can immediately send the message through that connection handler. Is that
Got it.
okay?
Uh,
Or yeah, go ahead,
Yes,
please.
that sounds fine. I have another question. So, is there a reason that you are getting that where which like client is connected to which handler before putting it to Kafka? Like, why couldn't you find it after taking it out from Kafka? Is there any reason do you have in mind?
Okay, so you are mentioning instead of getting the connection handler from here, I'm okay. Okay, yeah, there is one reason that I may find about it. Okay, so the reason is anytime the connection handler is coming, right? Anytime the connection handler is coming, then in that case, at first what I'm doing is connecting with the connection manager, and then I'm putting it in Kafka with, oh yeah, one thing I can think of it is most of the time it will not be asking the connection manager, like this particular service that we talked about, is the connection handler 3 present here or not. This service most of the time it will not be asked, because most of the time it will not be connected to a separate handler, it will be mostly handled by the same handler, right? So we have that information already in the DB that this handler is performing it, so then we can have
Which
that.
TB, in which TP do you have it?
Okay, in this one, in this DB we are keeping the information that which client is missing, correct? Like to
Okay.
which client we
Do you
haven't sent
also
the,
have, okay. So, okay, now I have multiple questions.
yeah, go
So,
ahead.
client one, for supposedly sends to connection handler one. Now, client two, suppose was also connected to connection handler one. Now, both are connected to the same handler. Are you always going through the entire
No,
thing like going to,
no. If let's say
then what?
in this case, the one that you mentioned, let's say in this one, first one, I am thinking that the client one is sending messages to client three. But let's say in case our client, take this, probably one more thing. So we can say the second one is it is sending message to client two, and client two is also connected to client one, let's say. And in that case, I can maybe ask one or two time, or like whatever frequency we decide, to the connection manager where this client 2 is be like present right now, and the connection manager will reply he's connected with me only, like the connection handler one, after a duration. So let's say 2 3 messages or 4 messages or whatever duration we pick up. After that duration, I can have a cache here which will save my connected client, something like that. And also here I would like to mention something, let's say frequent connections. So these two, if we keep in mind, then the load on the connection manager reduces a bit, because anytime, because it, the connection handler one first of all has all the cache of the connected clients, it can first search the cache, and if it finds, then it will directly process with that. If it doesn't find, then it can ask the connection manager. And second, since in the frequent connection we will have less amount of data, and we have made it that okay, this user is sending this particular client a lot of messages frequently, so first we can go through the frequent connections and the searching process
What
will
do you
be
mean by
reduced.
frequent connections? Like,
uh,
is it across
to
client, across handler? What is it?
to which client I'm sending the messages again and again and again, like let's say if this particular, so here from client 1 I'm sending to client 2 or client 3, whatever, right? Then in that case, let's say
So, okay, I have a question. So,
uh,
this frequent connection that you're saying, is it for the client that are connected to the same handler or to different handlers?
I would like to keep it as same handler, not a different handler.
But then that, so you said two cache, right? One cache is my connected clients. So,
Yes,
if both client one and client two is connected to connection handler one, cool.
yes,
Then, though I do not need frequent connection. But if my client three is talking to client one a lot, but
yes,
they are both connected to different connection handlers. In that
yes.
case, also you're thinking of caching it, or like
In that case
that
also,
case
yes,
not?
yes. In that case also, first of all, I was thinking, let's say in our cache we have, let's say 10,000 or 1 million data saved, or 10,000, let's
Hmm.
say at this moment. But frequent, maybe let's say we have 100 or 500. So I was going to reduce the amount of time it is going to take the search. So that is why I put a frequent connection differently. But yeah, now that you mentioned it, it is also a very good idea that we can take a different connection handler as well and store that data to frequent connections, and then check it from there instead of directly asking the connection manager. So in that way also connection manager load will be reduced a bit. Yeah, that also we can do. So here
Okay.
we can have a both way connection from here to here, right? Okay.
Okay.
And we can have this cache with all the handlers and it will perform the same activity. Okay, now coming back to our original question, you mentioned that instead of getting this connection in the beginning, what if we have this connection at last? Okay, this actually solves that issue, like that question that you asked, it answers that. If we have it at the last, then there is no point of saving any cache or anything here, right? Because in the last, if we have to ask again, then what's the point of storing cache of the frequent connections or all the clients that are saved? So if we are keeping them in a
Hmm.
cache or frequently connections, then it's better to search them in the beginning instead of at the last, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Plus, also another point that here, the like because we want real time and we do not want a lot of messages to go to relay service, the cache needs to be updated at
very
very
frequently.
short duration,
There has
very
to be
frequently.
like a very short TTL, time to live. It has to be very short so that it will keep on updating very frequently. Otherwise, it will be like a lot of cache
Exactly.
miss, something like that. So to make it optimized, we will have
Exactly.
to update it frequently. Yeah, that's also correct.
Right. So from connection handler to connection manager, you might go very frequently. Like, so that is why instead of trying to go directly, like whatever is there in your cache, you might want to check it. And that is why you're
Yes.
going directly to connection manager.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes
After
sense.
that, yeah. Okay. So here, so far, we have just discussed about the flow of sending messages to one client, correct? Let's say we have one-to-one messages. So let's say we have group messages. So the second feature that we talked about, let's say we have group messages, correct? Then this group messages can be another consumer of this Kafka topic. And here, since Kafka has the information that, okay, this particular topic is for one-to-one, this particular topic is for group messages. So that particular group message will not go to the one-to-one message service. It will be received by the group message service. And then he can perform the exact same activity that we discussed here. He can, so sorry, yeah, so he can perform the activity of sending messages to, let's say, client he as well and client 2 as well, because he has the information that, okay, in this particular message I need to send the messages to both client 3 and client 2, and if it fails, then we can follow the similar maneuver that we have here, that will go through the relay service, right? Okay, that's one
Mm-hmm.
of the point, group messages. Then other main functionalities that we discussed that we would like to support is notification. Okay, so let's say we have okay, I would like to make it bit out of the way. Yeah, I think that will be good. Then we can have, let's say, a notification service. So let's say not there. It will be better to put it here. Let's say we have a notification service. So anytime a client has what we say, a client has received the message, then it will directly pass. There is no need for any notification. The client is already active on the mobile, so there is no need for any notification. It will directly come in, he will directly see. But most of the time we would like to have the notification. Let's say if the particular client is active like on the internet, but he hasn't received the messages because he is not connected through the connection handler, right? So he directly doesn't have the connection to the server, that's why he couldn't receive the message, but he is online. Then in that case, what we can do is from this relay service, we can inform the notification service to send a push notification, because in this push notification, he will need the client token. So that information we can save here, or we can also fetch it from a different DB, and this notification service will try to give the push notification to the client, and the client will receive it if he have uh, active, like internet connection as active. Otherwise there is no, if he is disconnected from the network, then he will not be able to receive the notification service, right? Okay, that also takes care of that. We have last seen status. Okay, so we can have another service here that, okay, where can I put it? So connection, okay, then I can put it probably here. Last seen service, I would like to put it here, that anytime, let's say, the message gets successfully sent and the client sees it, the client has already opened the app, either it has gotten a read receipt or a received receipt, then in that case both of the thing I would like to store in this last seen service, where I would keep the timestamp of which particular time that client received the last message or has seen the last message. So I'm keeping it closer to here because that will be easier for me to communicate from the connection handler itself, that okay, this connection handler has successfully sent the message, the client has received the message, it hasn't gone to the relay service, because in that case I don't know the client has seen or received or at all. But if it has successfully sent the message, then I can keep on updating the last in service that okay, this was sent or this was seen or something like that. Both ways, sent can be done from this connection handler, like who is sending, or received can be seen can be updated from the client who is trying to connect. So both ways it can be done. Okay, then so let's put the point.
Since we are a bit out of time, can you also talk about the data? Like, how are you storing the data in all of these scenarios?
Yeah, sure. So in this cases, if I go till now, so here we have a cache system, and in this one we are just saving the frequently kept connections, and we are all like mostly going to save few connections, right? Like okay, which client is stored where. So it's, I would like to keep it a key value store or something like where we don't need so much data. So it can be
Mhm,
like Redis, right?
mhm.
And then for this relay service, yeah, this one I can, the DB I can think of to be, let's say, a columnar DB, and here by columnar DB I am thinking of Cassandra. For some reasons I would just mention those. Why I'm thinking Cassandra, because obviously it has very high write throughput, as well as the read is also not very bad, it's also good enough. And since it's a columnar DB, most of the time what we'll be doing is we would like to get the data in the column wise, that okay, give me all the messages from this particular like user, or is this particular message ID, conversation ID. So we will just take all the messages from the column side, so that way Cassandra will be much more efficient. So that's why I would like to
Okay,
keep it
so for
here,
every message, there will be like a conversation ID, and that is
conversation
why.
ID.
Okay,
Yeah, so it will be
okay,
saved in a
makes
column
sense.
base, and I don't need to go through all the rows, like, oh sorry, not all the rows, all the columns. We just need to fetch some columns, that's all.
Also, you might want either for okay, so when you say conversation, you're also saying for this client. So client, like, okay, or group messages for both
Yeah,
you're saying. Okay, makes
yeah.
sense.
Because in group messages,
Okay,
anytime it's a single service only. Because this group message handles the group one, but once it really like releases from the group message, it becomes a single one anyway. This client too might have received the message. This client too might not. So in that point, it becomes a one message,
okay,
right?
got
Okay,
it.
that's all. Is there any other point where I would like to save? No. In client side, let's say one more thing here I would like to keep, since it's a messaging service, and anytime I open the app, I do not want that okay, at first the app will receive all the chats or everything, it will fetch from the server, then it will only show me. It will be very poor user experience. So in that case I would like to keep a local cache also, which is lightweight for the device to handle, and it can directly show whatever last data I have saved. So it can have something lightweight, so light db, like let's say we have SQLite, something like that, right? Yeah, that's all I think. Yeah, would you like to add anything else, or would you like to ask anything else?
What if I decide to store the messages?
Okay,
Like,
what
does
is,
WhatsApp store the messages? Like,
from my logic I would say yes, because if we think particularly about WhatsApp, we have multiple device access as well. So we have uh, what we say that from mobile, as well as we have WhatsApp web, something like that. So when we open WhatsApp web, it's we just give the device ID or the user ID by scanning that particular QR code. But it's not that all the messages is getting transferred from the mobile device to the user to the desktop. So there has to be somewhere where WhatsApp is keeping track of all the messages to store, so that whenever we are logging in WhatsApp web, it can directly fetch the data from that particular DB. So in that case I would like to store it probably here. So
but then WhatsApp says it is storing everything is encrypted. So
yes.
can you like discuss about that a bit? Like, what do you mean by encryption, and how might data be stored in that case?
Okay, in that case, whatever is like encryption means by like directly it will not be readable, right? So end-to-end encryption whenever we have it. So when the user tries to set up for the first time, and we have everything a setup process going on, at that time we have both the keys. One key is the public key and one is the private key, right? So when we are sending these messages for connection building purpose, we use the private for the as a asymmetric connection, and we used it we encrypted it using private one. But when we are sending the message through WebSockets, we are using symmetric encryption and we are sending that particular data by encrypting it, right? So it will only be accessible to the client only once he has received it. If anyone else
Why are
other
you
than,
using symmetric encryption like to send messages and not asymmetric itself?
because it will be very high, like the overhead will be very high. Every time the calculation that it takes to decrypt a symmetric key versus a symmetric key is very big. So anytime you have a big amount of data which everything is like asymmetrically encrypted, all the different messages, it will take a long time to process the message, so it will be inefficient. And other than that as well, exactly like HTTPS does, we are making the first connection to the server everything asymmetrically, so we can guarantee there that our connection will be safe. And then whatever connection after the whatever messages we are sending, since it is under the like first big asymmetric connection that we did, so we can ensure most of the time that will be very highly protected from other malicious users or anything who is trying to take our data, right? So that is why WhatsApp have this claim that they do not use the data of the users, because even if they take this one, they do not have the encryption key, the decryption key to decrypt the message and see whatever is there. So they can not see it, since it is so that way it is kept as safe. And then whenever we are connected in a web-based platform, then it can receive that data and we can have the key with us and we can decrypt it and see the data. Yeah, is that okay?
Makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So how would
Here,
you store
in
the
terms of
messages?
database, here in this encryption point, I would also like to mention that probably here also we can use a columnar database like Cassandra, like Cassandra. The reason is because here also most of the time, since we will have like not a variety of data to get from all the different, we will have limited amount of clients from whom we will want to fetch the data. And also once we get the client, we will have a lot of like messages to fetch. So if we use columnar db, then in that case we can use compression as well, which will be very efficient, since all of our column data in most of the rows are the same, so it can perform compression logic there, and then it can store that data very efficiently, compared to if we would have stored it in, let's say, a document based. In that case the compression may not be as good as we could achieve using Cassandra, because of the way we are storing the data. So that's the only way, not the only way, sorry, that's the
Awesome.
way I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I think we are out of time now. Any final thing that you would like to add to the design?
No, I think that's all. Yeah, that's all.
Okay. So, Subhajit, how was your experience? This was your first HLD interview
Yeah,
ever as a
that was.
candidate and as like the interview experience. How was it?
I would say that, yeah, it was very good. In the beginning, obviously, from the video, everybody can understand that I was very nervous, because obviously, once you are coming to this kind of interview, you have prepared for it, but still the interviewer can ask you tricky questions or may try to deceive you. Maybe it was the correct answer, but the interview may
Mm.
force on some point and try to deceive you. So you might get confused if you don't have a solid fundamental clear about it. So that was in the beginning a bit of a concern, that I might be a bit nervous and I might stutter a bit. But as we came down the flow, it became easier. I won't say like very easy, but it became easier to handle it.
But did you enjoy?
Yeah, a lot. It becomes, the process
Okay.
becomes much more actually intuitive, and also you also start to enjoy the process once you have at least the basic fundamentals clear, which I got very clear from you, obviously. But once you have that fundamental clear, that okay, if this sort of question asked, even if I don't have the exact answer, I may navigate it in this way, because logically I think this thing works in this place. So that way it made me much more confident that okay, whatever questions he asks me, I will be able to navigate it properly.
Okay. Anything else you would like to add? Like, uh, during the interview you found anything tricky? Because I was trying to confuse you. I tried to confuse you a lot.
Some
Like
point,
I knew whatever
yes.
whatever we had discussed, I knew that you were covering it, and I was very impressed because you covered it like point by point, and you had the cheat sheet with you. He
Hmm.
first this, then this, then this, and you covered almost everything that we had discussed. And I loved how confident you were. Also, I absolutely loved it. But anything that you would like to mention, that were you getting scared in between or anything like that?
Yes, two things, because first of all, I do not know all the questions that you are going to ask me. And since I am not also confident in multiple examples, in that case, it makes me think maybe there are some scenarios or edge cases which I may not be able to handle. So in that way, I think my comment will be I would like to go through more of the design examples like WhatsApp or Messenger or similar type, or maybe different type, where I have edge cases which I know, okay, maybe this sort of problem can be handled by this sort of approach. That's one thing I would like to add. And the second thing, obviously, I would like to add is it becomes, once you have more of it, then it becomes much more easier. But in the beginning, sometimes you might think, have you prepared it all, or is there something that you actually haven't? Or you might think once you open the copy, everything is clear. Once you close the copy, everything is blank. So that way I was a bit nervous,
Right.
but other than that, once it started flowing, it was pretty good. No issue with that.
Right. Could you also, if you don't mind, share a bit about like before taking the course, how much you knew out of these things, like how much of this you would be able to answer, and could you feel a difference like from the course, or how was it?
A lot. A lot. The reason is because I am completely new to mostly the system design part. The only part that I will say I was aware before joining the course is the first day course, the first day topic that we discussed, networking, because that is the only part that I have read in doing my courses in college, different layers of networking. And but then also I didn't study it thoroughly, because we didn't have it like, okay, how TCP is different from UDP. Okay, DNS, how does DNS work both over TCP and UDP, and connection differences and all. It was not so in depth, but the general overview of the networking system. So that one we had it. So mostly the other parts that I have gone through, monolith, microservice, the terms also, it was very new to me sometimes. Sometimes the concept was very new, but yeah, one thing really helped, that is industry experience. So I had some of the industry experience, and then the examples that you provided, they were mostly the industry experience. Not like, okay, in classrooms what happens, the teacher will say, okay, this algorithm does this, but you are unable to relate, okay,
Hmm.
in which function, in which scenario you are able to use something like this algorithm. But you give similar examples in industry, okay, we might use this kind of thing here because of this thing. That made it much more easier to grasp the concept. Okay, it becomes much more efficient if we use this but not that, right? So for example, if let's say previous to this one, just for an example, so let's say I was given example of 10 dbs, like 10 db was given to me, and everybody mentioned, okay, this is column db, this is row db. I would have no idea to pick one db over the other, because I don't necessarily know how the query performs on those db, or how can we save these dbs like differently, what difference does it make. Or sometimes also, okay, maybe two dbs perform like the data is saved similarly, but which is write heavy, which is read heavy, in which case we should use it. I would have no idea to pick any one of them, and I would have most of the cases answered mongodb only, because that's the only db I have used like a lot. I have used MySQL as well, but very less. MongoDB a lot. So that was probably MongoDB will be the common answer. That way it has helped me a lot. And other than that, just one example, it can be given throughout the course as well. So monolith versus microservice, what are microservices, how to convert them, why should you use microservice, that sort of example as well. Yeah, so it was
But
very
like
informative.
depending, like you are the first student like of out of the course whom I have interviewed so far,
Yeah,
and honestly, like even after the course, I can see beginners struggle a lot. And you're saying you knew only networking before the
only
course,
networking,
and
nothing
I
else.
am honestly very very impressed because the confidence with which you are answering microservices, databases, because people take months, if not years, to know all of this. And like even after taking the course, it takes a lot of, like I am sure you have also invested a lot of time and
Yes.
energy, and you have taken it very seriously to go through everything. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so confident. Like just attending the classes won't make anyone this confident. It is because you were very serious about it, and like it was not like you were just listening in the class. You also participated, and I can actually feel the difference. So kudos to you. Also, I will not say that entirely it's because of my course. It's your dedication because of which you have done so well. And honestly, I am feeling so proud right now. You have done much, much better than what I expected.
I would like to add there, it's a both way street.
Yeah.
Beginners like me, we might have taken other courses as well or other some approaches as well, but it always doesn't work because you may not find that particular interactivity that you are trying to find. So with you, when you were teaching, the interactivity was there the most, and I mentioned that specifically in my feedback as well, that I really, really enjoyed the interactivity between you and the students. That way we can learn more. And also it is also one, like you can say, biased opinion. Your channel is actually the first channel that I saw regarding the system design. When before, like let's say 3 months to 4 months back, I had no idea what is system design, how system design works and everything. But then I started researching about product based companies and everything, and in one way or the other I came across your content over LinkedIn and then over YouTube. Then I started watching your videos. Oh, so this is how system design works, this is how HLD LLD. So since I have already consumed a lot of your topics, so your teaching style is like very much familiar to me. So that is when you are teaching or when I am explaining the stuff, I can relate. Okay, if she has done so much videos and everything, in most of the videos how she would approach this problem, that thinking helps a lot. Because anytime you are giving an exam, you just think of teacher, how she reacts or she reacts in the class, then something might come which you are like, which won't come by like what can I say, doing the whole thing like reading. It doesn't come like that. It comes by experience. So that also helped a lot. Yeah.
But I could see that you have watched a lot of mock interviews as well. But it takes a lot of guts to, like how much ever prepared you are. Even YouTubers say that it is very hard to, come up in front of a
Yeah.
camera and actually take the entire interview, like live interview. And that itself shows that, your confidence and your dedication towards it. So thank you so, so much for doing this. Like, I highly appreciate it. Anything else you would like to mention to the audience?
Ah, two things. Obviously, that part that you just mentioned, I have watched a lot of interviews and all. Yeah, that is also true. But in that case, also, I would like to say that watching a lot of interviews is one point, but actually practicing it, going through it is separate. And you have mentioned it in one of your videos that you don't need to watch everything or just do something in front of the mirror or just write it out or just something. That you mentioned that you are a very note heavy person, like who writes to like a lot of notes and everything, right? So if you connect the dots, you will be able to see, okay, what if whatever she has taught me out of my office time, after finishing my office, I'll just practice it like let's say 20 minutes, 50 minutes, and then it will be like once you write it 2 3 times, it becomes like fixed hall of fame in your like head, and it becomes very clear, crystal clear.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Subhajit, for coming and doing this. And I'll be leaving Subhajit's LinkedIn in the description. If anyone is interested in connecting with him, you are free to do that.
I am like very thankful that I got this opportunity from you, because obviously out of all the everyone who have joined the course, by luck or by chance or whatever it is, I got the chance to
It
actually
is
do the
not
mock
by luck.
interview. So that's
It is
also.
definitely not by luck. It is about who really shows the interest, who is active, who shows the interest. Because in your feedback also, I saw that you said I'm very much interested, and then when I mailed you, also you showed the interest. Like you
Yeah.
took out time to like write it down in the feedback, and you always replied to the mail properly. So it is not because of luck. It is because you made the effort. So I won't call it luck at all. But thank you so much for coming and doing this. And I'm leaving Subhajit's LinkedIn also in the description. So if anyone's interested to know more about him or to interact with him, you can go talk to him. And if you want to take any other honest feedback, you can do that as well. So thank you and see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Take care.